He said, men ought always to pray and not to faint. Men ought always to pray and not to faint. 3 key words. Ought, always, and fainting. It means prayer is not a decision you have the liberty to make or not to make. It's a must. Men ought. So it is not something that you have the luxury to choose. You cannot but choose it if you are a man. And that's why it fascinates me. Because it dawned on me that the way men are defined in the spirit is not the way they are defined biologically. There are 2 times Jesus made this kind of statement. The first time he made this statement was in Luke chapter 4. You find the same in Matthew chapter 4. He said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And then here, he said, men ought always to pray. So what makes you a man is not that you are breathing. It's either that you are feeding on the word or that you are praying. So if you are not feeding on the word and you are not praying in the spirit, you can be called a donkey. And that's why there are many people, when they go to sleep, witches come to ride them. Because as they are not praying and as they are not studying the word, they can become anything in the spirit. That's why you find many people, their destinies are marginalized. A witch sits somewhere and chants incantations, casts some spells, and a great and mighty destiny is wasted because the man is not watching in prayer. And so what will make you live your life and fulfill your destiny as a man, this is one of the secrets. He said, if you are a man, you ought to pray. And the second key word there is not just that you should pray. Because if he only said pray, then you would have prayed when it's convenient. But in this same scripture, he makes us understand prayer is not something you do at your convenience. He said men ought always to pray. Because that gap you cease from praying, a lot can happen. And it is one of such that God's servant revealed to us. That somebody else who killed his own child can lay claim on that which is yours. Now, a child is not just one that you give birth to biologically. Your destiny can become your child. And somebody else who wasted his destiny can come and take yours because you are not watching. Have you seen young men before? Very gifted. They are just walking home and somebody said he's drunk. And he writes into them and shuts down a great destiny because he said he was drunk. Have you seen young men before that are just in a mall and a fool just comes into that mall, removes a gun and shoots people, and you hear that 11 died, 12 died. If you were praying, you will not be there because your destiny would have been secured. It can take a whisper. Don't enter that mall now and you will wait for 5 seconds. That 5 seconds will become the difference between life and death. But the reason you entered and you were shot is because you are not praying. And so your destiny, that is your child, can be hijacked by somebody else who takes the excuse of being an alcoholic. And at the end of the day, he's tried to cut, but another man has gone to the grave. And so he said, if you don't pray, somebody can kill his own child and come to take yours. And also if you don't pray, he said your field, which is your destiny, can become the ground where the devil comes to sow tares amongst the wheat. Because all of the plantings of the devil are done when men are sleeping. So Jesus knows. And so he says that one day that you cease to pray can be the day the devil comes for a visitation. But those who understand how life is lived, they never give the devil a chance. Paul said, giving no place to the devil. And the way you resist the devil is by prayer. It said, putting on the whole armor of God, you will resist him by praying all kinds of prayer. And so there are times when you are praying prayers of thanksgiving. There are times when you are praying prayers of intercession. There are times when you are praying prayers in tongues, because you have exhausted all the human syllables, but you know it's not enough. So when you are done exhausting human syllables, you enter the language of angels and you start praying the prayers that are deeper than your understanding. Because by all means, men ought always to pray. And the third thing Jesus said is that if you don't pray, you will faint. So the opposite of fainting is prayerlessness. So when you find men that are overwhelmed with life and destiny, that weakness is a product of prayerlessness. And so prayer is not something you are weak not to do, because your strength actually comes from prayer. So when you feel weak, that's when you should pray, because that's where your strength comes from. You don't say you are weak, you stop praying. When you are weak, it's a good excuse to pray, because it's in prayer that strength will come. This is Jesus talking. And so it's not something you take for granted. If you are a man who wants to fulfill destiny, he said prayer must be a must. Ought, not should, not if they desire. It is required that men should pray. And they should not just pray, they should pray always. And if they don't pray always, he said they will faint. And trust me, you don't want to faint, because the devil is prowling as a roaring lion, looking for whom he will devour. If he finds you weak in the spirit, he will capitalize on your weakness, and he will